Chapter 11. Resting, waiting for Peter to take the lead once more, to become Peter again and direct them, the boys curled and sprawled among the rocks. Peter withdrew within himself. First he walked to the edge of a small brook and soaked his scalded forearms in the cold water. Then he walked to the cliff's edge, starting one way, turning, starting another, restless, inconsolable. Alex thought, that's the way I felt the day I ran to Catriana, not knowing what to do. But there was no Catriana for Peter. Thinking of her now, Alex's mind roamed back through that day, and it all spoke to him as if it were a book being read or a magic lantern show. He saw her in her little room, eyes shining, voice gentle, soothing him, telling him not to despair, telling him of her dreams, giving him hope. Now Alex walked to Peter impulsively. Peter, he said hesitantly, I have a good friend. You have heard me speak of my teacher, Katriana Sergeyeva. His voice caught when he spoke her name. Once again, speech brought reality to thoughts. Once, on the day I was left alone, she told me about places in the world where people are free, even in their houses, where they own their land and keep their crops, where they go about as they like, even if they do not live as we do. Peter, we could all go to some place like that where no one could catch you. I have an uncle who went to America. He lives in a big city called New York. America, Peter replied. That's across the ocean. And how do you know it's different than this? Catriana knows. She only tells the truth. Well, that may be the truth or not, Peter said, but even if it was true, we have no way to get there. If there was such a place, would you want to be there? Alex pressed. Perhaps, was all Peter would say. Peter, Alex went on now, as thoughts deep in the back of his mind spilled forth. Katriana Sergeyeva has a brother in Petrograd. You mean Leningrad, Peter said. Yes, I forget that its new name now. Even Katriana says Petrograd or St. Petersburg. But let me tell you, the brother can help people who want to go to such places. Katriana says. She wanted to go herself, but she was not able to. Peter looked up. Your teacher wanted to go away? Yes. She wanted to leave when she had a home and work and food? But she said that is not all. She said that the thoughts have to be free. Yes, Peter said, I think that too. Perhaps I like your Katriana Sergeyeva. Katriana is not her Russia now. Says it is not her Russia now. Maybe sometime, but not now. Do you want to go away too? Peter asked. Alex thought about it. I didn't take it seriously then. All I could think of was that my family was gone. And I didn't think of it again until just now. But now, with the police looking for you, and then because of what happened to Miska, he choked as he said that, and they both looked away. Then he went on. Well, there are all these, he motioned to the children lying on the hill. It could happen to them too, to us too. Peter nodded. Then he said, Do you know where this brother can be found? Yes, at least I think so, if he's still in the same place. Katriana told me where he was working. But how can we get all the way to Leningrad, with the police after you? Peter said, Haven't you learned anything yet? Then we might have to leave you behind. That deflated Alex a little, but at the same time he was elated that Peter started to sound like Peter again. They were not, after all, set adrift with no one to lead them. And too, he heard the echo of his own voice speaking to Peter, informing him, and it surprised him. If they did go to Leningrad and perhaps leave the country, all these children would go because he had thought of it. It amazed him that he might be affecting someone else's actions, someone's choices, when he had scarcely ever been asked to make one for himself. Once again, Peter had begun pacing about, walking alone, head down. But the sun had not yet risen when he returned to the group, saying, Everyone up, we're off. I'm hungry, Anya said. I want to find some food first. Later, Peter said. Where will we go? Leon asked. What difference? Peter said, almost lightly. Only Alex knew there might be truly a destination. It pleased him. By midday they were high in the mountains. The steep, craggy paths slowed their progress, but they felt safer in these heights where the lazy police might not bother to climb. They were in snow now, and when they stopped to rest, they sat at the edge of a gorge below where a river wove whitely. In the distance, above the cliffs and forests, an eagle flew in and out of the clouds. And they were not alone in these hills. When Alex first saw shadowy figures along the path, he feared it was the police. But they were a hardy people called Ingushas. After the revolution, they did not want to join the collective, Peter said, so they left the villages and went to the mountains. Now they keep on fighting the revolutionaries, even though the war is over. They raid, steal, ambush the GPU squad, set fire to collective farms. They keep their cattle hidden way up here. They look wild, Alex whispered. And they did, with their matted hair, savage looking beards, enormous sheepskins that made them look like some kind of beast. Maybe we all look pretty wild ourselves, Peter said. They won't bother us unless we try to take their cattle. Would they give us just a little milk? Anya said. Asked how I would love some milk. Don't you think of anything but food? Kostya asked. No, Anya said. Look, Alex said to her. Did you know you can eat this? And as old Tolka had shown him, he stripped a piece of bark from the white birches. Carefully, he peeled off the papery outer layer and from the inside peeled a thin fibrous piece, which he gave to Anya. She popped it in her mouth, made a face, but chewed it happily. Soon the others were doing the same, and their progress was slowed now for a raid on the birch trees. Come, Peter said, we can't hang around here too long, or we'll get the Ingushes' attention. They probably think these are their trees. Put some bark in your shirts and take it along. So they proceeded, chewing birch bark. By late afternoon they were tired, and Alex and Ivan were carrying a sleepy Anya. This one is a nuisance, Ivan said. Let's throw her over. They made a swing of Anya, who screamed a mock scream. No, don't, Kostya said. She might be good to eat later. Anya chuckled. These three watched her like a treasure. She understood their banter. In the cold, in the misery, she was comfortable with them. They will watch the railroad stations on this side of the mountain, Peter said, so we'll stay here tonight. Not many bands will be traveling north now, so we will stick out. We'll have to make a plan in the morning. They built a fire of fallen branches and warmed themselves while they melted snow. Once again, old Tolka's teaching came to serve Alex and the band. They dug beneath the snow to find the dead leaves that had fallen in autumn. Then they lay back to back, covering themselves in the leafy blanket. In the distance, and sometimes even closer at hand, the howls of wolves could be heard, but to these children it was not the most frightening thing they had heard. Indeed, Alex thought, in the months that had passed, he had slept in worse places. In the morning they dug for roots beneath the snow and chewed on more birch bark. Then they followed Peter across the crest of the mountains and climbed cautiously down the other side. In the distance, below them, the railroad road could be seen. I don't think they'll be watching here, Peter said, but we'll better be careful. We'll go down until we're right above the station. When we see the train in the distance, we'll speed down a couple at a time, not as a band. Then wait for the train to leave. Don't get on until it's moving. We could be trapped in those boxes if they see us. They waited, restless on the sun-warmed slope, warming their bodies from the cold night. Anya and some of the other younger children dug for green shoots under the earth, munching away the hours. Then, here it comes, one of them shouted. They waited as the train chugged into the station and discharged its passengers. They watched the platform for any groups of police and saw only one local policeman in a sloppy attire trying to keep his eyes in four directions. When the second bell rang, Peter called now, and they sprinted down the hillside, leaping as if they were springs, stones clattering to the gulch below, and entered the station yard singly, in twos or threes, just as the train got slowly under way. When it was out of the station, they ran for it, covered by the train itself from the eyes of the policemen. They grabbed the outside handholds, swung up onto the roof, passing Anya and the little ones up. Then they rode, spread-eagled on the roof, flying through the countryside on the way to Moscow. It was almost 2 hours before they arrived at the next station, and as the train slowed, steam rising about them from the engine, they slipped down over the sides of the cars and ran alongside, arriving at the station just as the train pulled in and its passengers descended. Peter collared one of the smaller boys when he started to beg. Fool, he hissed, we are still being invisible. And he led him and the others to the side of the station away from the eyes of the station master and the patrolling soldiers. I'm hungry, the boy protested. Oh, what news, Kostya said, and gave him a kick. But Anya was loose like a wound-up toy. She ran around, picking up scraps that people dropped like a bird in a park. Then she stood staring at a woman eating a piece of cake, her great blue eyes wide, her small mouth quivering, licking her lips as the woman swallowed. The woman turned away with a frown and a shake of her head. Then she turned back and gave what remained to Anya. It was gone in a gulp, and Anya was off to stare at someone else. Alex grabbed her. Cut it out, Anya! And he whisked her to the side of the station where the rest of the band rested behind the baggage carts. When the train started up again, they made a run for the black boxes beneath the carriages. Their return to Moscow was like their escape to the south, long and tedious, and instead of gradually getting warmer, it became colder. When they were far enough away from the mountains to feel safe, they emerged to forage at the stations, the little ones begging, Ivan doing his headstands, with Alex announcing the event, and the others doing what they did best to find food and drink. I'm glad we're going back to Moscow, even if it's cold, Kostya said. Moscow is where everything happens. Every day there is something new. We are not going back to stay in Moscow, Peter now said. Alex wondered if he had just made up his mind, or if he had decided back in the mountains, which seemed like months ago instead of days ago. Then where are we going? For now, we're going to Leningrad. He seemed to be telling them no more than they needed to know at the moment. Leningrad is okay, Leon said. Leningrad is almost as good as Moscow. But why don't we just stay in Moscow? We're almost there now. I'm sick of the trains. I'm sick of them too, Anya said. We'll just see if there isn't something good in Leningrad, Peter said firmly. Peter's getting too bossy, Leon said under his breath to Kostya. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Kostya said belligerently. You only have to stay with Peter if you want to. Me? I'll try Leningrad. At Moscow, they had to change stations, running through the familiar snowy street, happy to be free from the confinement of the trains, jumping, leaping, to vent their pent up spirits. The trip to Leningrad is short, Peter said. This is the easy part. And thus cheered and encouraged, they waited for the early morning train to Leningrad, avoiding the bands who dominated the stations, staying out of fights for territory. But I can get food here, Anya complained when she was kept from begging. You can also get a broken nose here, so wait a while, Kostya told her. They had to wait that night in the station because there was no train until morning. But time was something that had no beginning and no end. They did not count it, only what it produced for them, and this time it gave them to rest from their tiresome travel in the black boxes. It was early afternoon when they found themselves standing in the Nevsky Prospect in Leningrad, not far from the Winter Palace, home of the Tsars. The ride had only been a mere 6 hours, a mere blink in time. They followed Peter to the Tuchkov quay on the river Neva, still frozen near its banks, where ice fishermen stood. Down the steps of the quay they went, holding close to the stone walls, until they found a shelter in the embankment itself. There they settled as they always did, easing their bodies around rocks and stones and dirt and clay to make a temporary abode. Alex took Peter aside. Shall we try to find Basil Sergeyevich Sokolov? Immediately, Alex said. As quickly as possible, Peter said, because I must tell the rest what is happening very soon. Why not tell them now? Alex asked. I do not want to raise their hopes or else start arguments, if we're not sure ourselves what could be done. Alex noted that 3 of the boys were not there, but shortly Leon and the 2 other boys returned with 3 fish taken from the pail of an ice fisherman. They ate the fish raw. Alex gagged but felt nourished when he had choked it down. Anya had no trouble psyching the little bones. In my old band, she said, we cooked a rat for supper many nights, but we did not have to eat raw fish. Alex laughed. He was thinking about scorched oatmeal again. We can't all go to see your teacher's brother, Peter said quietly to Alex. They'd throw us out. They'd report us. Here, let me see you. He pulled Alex over. You still have your boots, eh? Well, that's something. He ran up to the step of the quay to the street, then down to the curb where a horse-drawn cart awaited the return of its driver. Peter bent down and scooped up some grease from the wheel, then returned to the embankment. He spread the grease on Alex's boots, buffing it with the ragged sleeve of his shirt. Look at that, Peter said. Like new. You could sell those for a good dinner right now. Alex held up his feet, exhibiting the soles. Enormous holes took up most of the space where the soles would have been. Not too good of a dinner, he laughed. This may not be a bad place for food, Leon said. It's better than Moscow anyways. There are all these fish in the river. I think you are right, Peter. After all, I think we should stay here at least until it warms up in Moscow. Peter said, Well then, I'm going to tell you that we did not come to Leningrad to stay. We only came here to find someone who may help us leave Russia. Silence. Only the clink and the chop of the ice fisherman nearby. Then, leave Russia? Kostya spoke for them all. Alex knows of someone who knows about this, Peter said. He is going to see him now. But I don't want to leave Russia, Leon said, and I'm telling you that we wouldn't have much trouble getting fish. We would not be going only because it's hard to find food, Peter said. We would be going because, because now we are boys who are stealing and may have to go to a children's home, Alex said. Better one day soon, but one day soon we will be men who are stealing and we will go to prison for the rest of our lives. We'd be going because nothing else but this is going to happen to us all our lives. There was silence. Then Leon said, But can't you give Leningrad a chance? It's not bad. A few of the small boys agreed. Think about it, Peter said. No one would have to go who does not want to. Anya went down to the river's edge and ladled water into her bowl. Wash your hands, she directed Alex. Ouch, Alex cried. It's freezing. Put your face in it, Anya ordered. Wash it. Wash it. Alex did as she told him. Now several children climbed over Alex like mother monkeys, picking off dirt, lint, hay, grass, cinders. Anya stood on Kostya's shoulders and arranged Alex's hair strand by strand, then beat his cap in the air and laid it carefully on his head. She regarded him proudly. Isn't he beautiful? She said. She leaned over and kissed him. A lump choked Alex's throat. How long had since anyone had kissed him, told him he was beautiful? You'll get by, Peter said. We'll wait right here. Now go.